Hello and welcome to this quick tip. This quick tip is about our friend the X8R. Now, if you're a fixed-wing flyer, you probably have loads of these knocking around because they're perfect for most sized airplanes. And they have up to 8 outputs. They also provide an S-bus out, and they have a handy RSSI connection if you're connecting it up to something like a flight controller. Now, as part of the Eagle Tree Vector series, I'm starting to put the Eagle Tree Vector inside the Hobby King T28 that we reviewed a little while ago, because it already has a camera in the canopy, and it will be a fun, interesting one to make an autonomous GPS enabled flyer. And I've just done something with a receiver that I thought, you know what, I've never actually done a video on that, and there's not a lot of information around. Now, what we're talking about here is that it can actually bind the receiver to the radio in one of a number of ways, and most of the pilots that I've spoken to after having this idea are unaware that this is possible, even though it's actually in the manual. Now, by default, when you bind the receiver up to the radio, you just hold down the bind button, you select all the bits and pieces, the D16 protocol on your radio, you select either 1 to 8 or 1 to 16 channels, put the radio in bind, hold the bind button down on the X8R, plug in your power, wait for that to finish, exit out of the bind process on the radio, pull the power from the receiver, and it's all good to go. And then what you get is, out the S-bus connection, you get either 1 to 8 or 1 to 16 channels, depending on how many is specified when you put the bind together. And also you'll find that the PWM outputs, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, will reflect the first 8 channels in your radio mixer too. But I'm actually using the X8R here with a flight controller, and there's a couple of cool things that you can do. So one of the really cool things that you can do is actually you can bind it in a way so that the S-bus output still give you the channels that you're after, either 1 to 8, 1 to 16, whatever you set up on the radio when you went to bind it, but you can tell it to output not channels 1 to 8 on outputs 1 to 8, but the next 8 channels available, channels 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 and 16 out on channels 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 on the actual receiver itself. Now what this means is that if you're using a flight controller, you still have 8 PWM connections that you can connect to the X8R and use it for things like retracts, lights, gimbals, gear, all those kind of other things that you may have on a model, which is why I'm doing it this way for the T28, because it has things like gear and stuff that I'll probably be handling manually through the radio. So to get it into this other mode, and again it's covered in the manual, what you need to do is you need to get hold of those little clips that you get inside the package when you buy an X8R that you've probably wondered what they're for. You short out the signal pins on outputs 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, and then on the radio make sure that you've got 1 to 16 channels selected, bind as normal, then take out those jumpers, and now what you'll find is that amazingly you absolutely will have all your S-bus channels, so you can have the main 4 flight controls going into your flight controller. With the Vector we also need 2 channels for the mode and the sub mode. We also need a channel for gain as well. So you know what, there's kind of 6 or 7 channels before I've even thought about doing flaps, brake, gear, lights, gimbal. So all of that stuff is available in the mixer. I set them up for channels 9, 10, 11, 12, whatever, and then I plug those extra accessories on the plane into the outputs on the X8R as well. Now, we looked at the fact that the RX num is a little bit of an interesting one in a previous video, and if you haven't watched that, I'd recommend going and having a look at that, because you can bind multiple receivers to the same receiver number, and that is what you can do with the X8R as well. You can also bind 2 X8Rs in this way. Now the only trick there you have to be careful of is only one of the X8Rs that you bind up with the same receiver number on the same model can have telemetry enabled, and that's why in the manual you can see that there's actually options for with and without telemetry. So if you've already got the first one bound up and it's bound in mode 5, which is that standard one where it's the first 8 channels, then you want to use mode mode 3, which is where you're just going to short channels 1 and channels 2 when you do the binding, that won't give you telemetry, but it will give you channels 9 to channel 16 out on the PWM pins. So hopefully that's interesting for those of you that are fixed wing flyers, or those of you that maybe are using a smaller receiver with a flight controller in a fixed wing model and would love to have had more outputs to plug other things into. This is the perfect way to do it. Thank you for taking the time to watch that video, and particularly for watching right to the very end. We try and release a video on Tuesday and Friday, and sometimes we'll release 1 or 2 extra ones in a week as well. All of the videos on the channel are organised into easy to use playlists, so do have a look in there, because if you're interested in a subject, we organise all the videos on that subject so you can find them easily all together in one place. If you like what we're doing, then please like and subscribe and tell others about the channel so they can come and join as well. We're available in all of the usual social media places, particularly in places like Instagram, Twitter, and we also share all of our 3D designs on Thingiverse.